It was a dream. It's all a dream that has come true. I can't believe what I'm feeling. I can't keep my feet still. My way to the game that I couldn't even watch. I was so nervous about the outcome. And Butlerville's going crazy. Eastern's going crazy. All I want to say is I love you all. I love everybody in Butlerville. I love everybody in Eastern. I love everybody in Canada. Woo!
Rob Butler appeared as a pinch hitter last night.
Batter holds the bat out of pitching. The one thing that Schilling doesn't want to do with a hitter like Butler is throw off-speed pitches to him, overpower him. You try to overpower the smaller guys. 1-2.
He reached on a fielder's choice and scored last night. It is only a bat, and there's a base hit. Cañate streaking toward third, and he'll get there.
Just go ahead and smile, Rob.
Yeah, 20 years ago, I was a batting champ. Seems like it's a long time ago, which is funny. But I don't feel any different. Coming back here, it's brought back all those great feelings, and I'm young enough for, sometimes I think I might be able to get my own bat in there here and there, but not that I will. I've always loved this league. When I was a kid, I followed the stats. I watched Bill Bykowski and Rick Johnson and a lot of those old guys that played for the Leafs, and they were my heroes growing up, so it's always an honor for me to wear a Leaf uniform and be a part of this.
So this week's guest is Rob Butler, as you may have seen by now, and he's had just an unbelievable baseball career, from being the batting champ in 2001 with the Toronto Maple Leafs, where he hit .488, to being an Olympian at age 18, where we kind of got to see him on the big stage and on the international stage, and how about winning a World Series with the Toronto Blue Jays in 1993 as well, maybe the best of them all. And I just love that interview in the Blue Jays locker room with Rod Black. We'll have some connections to the Maple Leafs as well. So without further ado, this is Leafs Weekly Episode 3, Butlerville. Rob, there's a lot of different ways I think I could take this interview. And, you've had such a cool baseball career, but I thought maybe I would start right here. There's a place in Newfoundland called Butlerville, and I remember I was watching the World Series Game 5, and that was a big thing that the commentators were talking about. Can you kind of tell me about Butlerville, Newfoundland, and what that place means to you?
Yeah, Butlerville, Newfoundland, where my dad was born. His grandfather was, he believes, the first person there, which is why it's named Butlerville. His family definitely were the cornerstone of that area for sure, because when we used to go there as a kid, he had 14 siblings, and it's pretty much, that's all that was there, was just my dad's family, and his cousins, obviously. So it's definitely named after the family, and a fun place to go to, and a place where I come home and I tell my friends when I was a kid that I just came back from Butlerville, and they thought I was joking. I didn't think it was a real place. Like, oh, you just say that, and I'm like, no, there's actually a sign that says "Welcome to Butlerville." So, and now it's on Google Maps, so there is proof that it exists and it is a real place. And for some reason, it became a bit of a story when I was playing in the World Series. I guess because it's interesting, and I got a chance to get 2 at-bats in the World Series, and I got on base both times. And the announcers, I know they threw that in there, and all of Newfoundland went kind of crazy for that, especially my family. My family were watching, and CBC went out there and did a big scoop on my family while I was playing. So the whole family was in the house watching. They would like us to win a little more than they would last year. I want to bring that World Series ring home to them. So, my family is right into it, and they want the Blue Jays to win just like anyone else, and hoping that I get a ring.
And if the Blue Jays clinch the World Series,
and yeah, it was a pretty big deal, man. And I didn't know what was going on. Obviously, I was just you don't hear the announcements when you're playing, and there was no cell phones then, so I didn't get the messages until I think I got home, right? I was like, oh, wow, it was all on CBC. And, my grandmother got on TV, so it was pretty exciting for them, for sure.
So right before this episode, we've just watched a clip of you in the locker room for the Blue Jays after you've won the World Series. You're doing an interview with Rob Black, and you are as excited as any 23-year-old kid, I think, could possibly be. You can't stop moving your feet, as you point out in that interview. And I know that was just an unbelievable moment for you. Just kind of looking back on that now, like, how big a moment was that for you, just like in your life and in your baseball career as well?
Well, Well, it was enormous. It was unbelievable, really. It was surreal that I was there. I grew up loving the Blue Jays. I mean, missed school to watch spring training games back in the day, and went to Exhibition Stadium and just fell in love with all those characters. Those were our Marvel superheroes. For us as kids growing up in Toronto. Lloyd Moseby and Barfield and Dave Steve and Tom Henke and I mean, going on and on. Tony Fernandez, like you knew everybody, right? You knew everybody in the minor leagues. You knew everybody that was coming up. You knew the whole story of all the players in the Blue Jays. They were so good at just making you fall in love with them, because they were so bad and then they became so good. So we all kind of in the '80s grew up with that, right? So it was a team that we all kind of like grew up with for sure. So for me, it was my dream to play for the Blue Jays, and luckily enough for me, I was somehow I got in. knowing me and where I came from and how I grew up, growing up with me in Danforth, and me and my brother basically, a couple of poor kids living on terra housing, playing Burby every day. If we found a baseball that we could use, which we usually didn't, we usually had to climb on top of the school roofs to find tennis balls. We were out there every day throwing to each other, playing wall ball, catching fly balls. I mean, we just loved baseball so much, right? It was so ingrained in us for some reason. My dad didn't play, my mom didn't play, but we just loved it, man. And maybe we were lucky that we didn't know the difference between having stuff and not having stuff, because we didn't have video games or anything like that. We had the outside, we had sunshine and schoolyards. So, and we were surrounded by a good group of buddies, right? We had a lot of buddies who loved playing as well. And that's really how we got good at baseball. So, for me to go play in the Olympics when I was only 18 years old, I was still in grade 12 in high school, and I got to experience all these things. It all comes from that. It all comes from being a dirtbag kid out playing until I, come home with my knees rubbed off, and me and Rich wishing it didn't get dark because we wanted to keep playing. Those kind of things were always going on when we were kids. So it was special. It was unbelievable that I got to play for the Blue Jays. '92. I was an A ball only, but I watched the World Series at home. I went to the parade to see it as a fan, right? Even though I was in the minor leagues and a part of the organization, I still was a fan, and going crazy for them. And then the very next year, be playing in the World Series it almost does seem surreal because it happened very fast. I only played about 190 minor league games. Didn't play a lot of minor league games. They called me up pretty quickly, and it was tough. It was tough being from Toronto and playing for the Blue Jays. I wouldn't really wish it on anybody, or I would wish that they would get months of therapy before they tried it, because it's very distracting. And it's tough. Like the major leagues is the hardest place to play baseball, and in that environment, playing on a team like the Blue Jays, which is countrywide, right, Newfoundland to Victoria, everybody loves Toronto. So it was more, added a feeling that you had to play good all the time, and it was definitely difficult. So, but I when I got to the World Series, I got to play in the World Series. When I got on the roster, it was shocking, because now I was one of the best 25 in the whole world, right? And that's not easy to accomplish. That's not easy to achieve when you grew up poor. So, it was very exciting. I mean, unbelievably exciting, to be honest. And, Cito put me in the games, and he trusted me, and I got a hit and scored a run in game 4. Got a hit near the end of the game in game 5 and gave us a chance to come back. And, that was the beauty of that team. They trusted you no matter what. You're the player with the least amount of experience. It was just like you had the most amount of experience. They put you in, and that's why we won. We were definitely a team united.
I know that the Blue Jays were not the only team in the Toronto area at the time, because the Maple Leafs were around as well. I know you had a dream, you and your brother Rich had a dream of playing for the Maple Leafs, and you did. You did quite well, and now you're here coaching the team as well. But I want to go back to the very start of your career. You got to start out in Stratford, right? Playing for the Stratford Hillers. Can you tell that story of why you had to start there, and how your IBL career got started?
I had to play in Stratford because younger players weren't allowed to play for Toronto. If you were under 21 and you lived in Toronto, you weren't allowed to play, and that made Jack very mad. So I come out of the Olympics, and I had to go play for Stratford. They called me, and Dennis Schooley was the owner and manager of that team back then. Crazy man Schooley, great guy, great team, great little city. I loved playing there. I mean, I hate to admit it, but I drove there without. I used to drive there. My dad gave me the station wagon. I didn't have my license. And
I was wondering if you were going to
brother
tell
and one of
that
my
part as
buddies.
well.
That's an old man in Danforth move, driving around with no license. But this was like 1988, 1990, it's different times, obviously. But yeah, no, I used to drive myself to the game, didn't have a license. My brother would come all the time. He's only 16, 17, loved it. We loved going to Stratford. And I did good. I played well there. I loved Stratford. You know, I hit a bunch of home runs, and Schooley really appreciated me driving from Toronto. But, you know, Jack was fuming mad. He wanted the rules changed. He didn't want guys like me. You know, I mean, ideally I wanted to play for Toronto, obviously, but I wasn't allowed to. So I had to go start my IBL career out in Stratford, playing for the Hillers. It was amazing.
I'm glad you brought up playing in the Olympics as well, because that was before you even played for the Maple Leafs. Like, crazy how that works out, right? 18-year-old Rob Butler is an Olympian playing for Canada. What kind of takeaways as a kid did you get from playing on an international stage like that? I mean, this is a stage that, since we haven't seen baseball in the Olympics in a while, that, I mean, almost nobody has really been in. So I'm just wondering, what kind of experience was that for you?
Oh my God, it was unbelievable. It came out of nowhere as well. When I was 17, 1987, I was really trying to gear up to play in the junior national team, but I didn't get a chance to try out. And it really motivated me to just go hardcore, like strength training, running. My mom and dad were marathon runners. And you know, I was really mad. I was pissed, right? That I didn't get a chance to play for Team Canada, because I always wanted to play for Team Canada. I've always wore, you know, I was a sporty, nerdy geek in school. I wore Olympic track pants, and I wore an Olympic logo on my sweaters and the coats I wore. Everything was Olympics. You would have thought I was 15 years old in the Olympics. I think I had more clothing than the Olympians did. So it was always like my dream to, you know, not even knowing what it was, but I wanted to be playing for Team Canada, right? So it was a huge motivator for me. I was at the gym every single day, not thinking of Olympics, just thinking of 18U Team Canada, right? I actually didn't even know there was an Olympic baseball team, which is funny. So when it came around for the tryouts, we went to South Dakota for 2 weeks. And so I made the junior national team, but that tournament wasn't until December in Australia. So that's where the Worlds were going to happen for the 18U. So when I was there, Jimmy Ridley, Bernie Beckman, Johnny Upham, they told me I was going to go and try out for the Olympic team. So this was in July, right? First week of July. So I called my parents and collect from Kitchener, and I was like, I'm from South Dakota, sorry. I'm not coming home. I'm going to Kitchener to try out for the Olympic team. And there's only 3 days left at camp. I didn't even know I didn't know any of this, right? I just kind of was like told, this is where you're going to be tomorrow. You're going to be in Kitchener for trying out for the Olympic team, and good luck. So I show up, and it's funny, like Matt Stairs is there, Peter Hoy is there, Greg O'Halloran, Warren Saku, Riel Cormier, like all these guys who played like high professional major leagues down the road were going to be on this team. And, you know, I had no idea. I was walking into a hornet's nest of guys who didn't want me on the team. I show up 18 years old, you know, got my white wristbands on. I used to always wear wristbands when I played back then. My dirty shoes, my high socks, and, you know, not really understanding where I was or who these guys were. And I didn't play well. The 3 days I was there for the tryout, we played against the St. Catharines Blue Jays. I made an error in the outfield. I struck out twice. We played at the exhibition stadium. Made another error. Things I normally wouldn't do. I was nervous, right? For the first time, I was actually really nervous about baseball. Like, I was never nervous like this, where I was out of control. I was at, like, my first sense of out of control, like, wow, I can't control myself, my emotions. So the team, I only learned this later on, right? And Stairsy was the guy who actually told me, say, you know, Rob, the guys here don't like you. They don't want you on this team, because you being here means one of their buddies that, you know, qualified for the team and at the Pan Ams the year before is being sent home, got cut. And Mark Griffin, who was the center fielder, was going to move over to right field so I could play center field. So he was pissed. So it was like a very unaccepted thing. And Stairs is like, Rob, you got to play good, man. Like, you got to start playing good, or these guys are going to be like, this guy's too young, he's too immature, like, you can't, he's not good enough. So anyways, I ended up hitting a ball off the wall at Exhibition Stadium. So I did actually have one hit that kind of may have swayed them more to put me on the team. I think I'd already made the team, but didn't realize it because nobody told me that, right? So when we were in Kitchener and they were announcing they were bringing us into, I thought I was getting cut. I was like, there's no way they're taking me. I stopped. So, anyways, Ridley brings me in. He said, we know you've had a couple, rough days, blah, blah, blah. But when you're in South Dakota, you're facing guys throwing 98, 99 miles an hour and hitting home runs. Like I hit like 500 in the South Dakota like it was a tryout. But we're playing Team USA, Team Taiwan, and Team USA had Kiki Jones and all these guys on there throwing 95 plus. And I was hitting. So they knew I could do it, right? That was their sample that they were using. So they said, you're on the team and you're going to be the starting center fielder. So just relax and go play baseball. So that was a huge relief. But I'd never been away from home that long and that far. I'd never been to Europe. The first time I flew in an airplane was going to South Dakota. I'd never been on an airplane before. So, and I'd never really been away from home before. So it was going to be a whole summer of the Netherlands, Italy, Japan, and Korea. So it's going to be right from July till October. And I'd never done any of this. Nobody really took me under the wing and helped me and said, what clothes to bring. And, I was so unprepared. I didn't even bring toothpaste. Like, I didn't know what, like, it was crazy. Like how I was just thrown into this without anybody, taking me under the wing and saying, make sure you got clothes, make sure you got your washroom supplies, make sure you got da, 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 da. I just thought it was kind of the same way as like South Dakota was. We all showered in the dorm, everything was there provided. Like it was all, but it wasn't like that at all. You're basically living, with a roommate and like a professional. Like you were on your own. And I didn't bring a bag. Like it was crazy. I only had my baseball stuff when I went to the Netherlands. I had to go and had to go shopping and buy a couple pairs of shorts. I think the only thing I brought was underwear and socks. It was crazy. And my aunt always has been supportive. My aunt Barb is my mom's sister, was incredible. My mom and dad had no money for this. Like they didn't know what they were panicking. They were like, "Oh my God, you're going to the Olympics! Like you're gonna have no money." And my aunt and uncle Phil, they gave me $1,500 in traveler's checks. I was at the airport and they showed up and they said, "We know you don't have a dime to your name. Here's $1,500. Make sure that you spend it wisely, but it'll cover for whatever, And luckily that came in handy, man, because I didn't have clothing. I was like right out of it, man. Pimpled, dumb, left-handed, in Europe. Like,
Yeah,
it was crazy. Anyways, I took what Matt Stairs told me to heart, and the first game we played in the Netherlands, and they love Canada there. Like the place was packed, 12,000 fans. People in Holland love Canadians, and I hit 2 home runs. And they gave me the silent treatment both times. It's funny. I came back. But anyways, after my second home run, I can still remember Matt Stairs and Gregor Howland put their arms around me and said, "Well, you've proven yourself now. Now you can just be a good baseball player for the rest of the year, rest of our tournaments." And when we went, man, I did well. I played, I hit 300 at the World Championships as an 18. I was the youngest player in the world playing at that time. None of the other teams at 18-year-old. I was the only high school kid on any team. Playing against first-round draft picks from Team USA. The whole team was first-round draft picks. Andy Bennis, Robin Ventura, Tino Martinez, Ben McDonald. I mean, I can go on and on and on. The team was stacked. Jim Abbott was there, and I got to experience it was unbelievable. It was incredible what I got to experience that year as a kid, a very immature kid who didn't know his ass from his elbow. It was an amazing time, and my teammate grew to like me more and accept me more because these guys are all 21, a couple years of college. I was only in high school. I couldn't really do anything with them. I couldn't party. I couldn't drink or anything like that. They like to. I had one of my roommates was 40 years old. He's older than my dad. So it was a very surreal time. Bob Bridges was 40 years old, older than my dad at that time. So it was crazy.
I mean, I think about all this experience you've had. There's lots of young players in the Maple Leafs that are 18 years old, coming up a similar way that you did as well. So I'm kind of wondering about kind of the philosophy that you take to coaching and hitting. And just to give some context, I've heard you on CBC talking about the Blue Jays in 2015, and you said Ben Revere was your favorite hitter on that team, even though they were stacked with all of these great hitters. I've also heard you talk about Paul Molitor and Joe Carter and saying a lot of the home runs that they hit, they weren't even trying to hit home runs. It was just by accident that they ended up going out of the park. And then I look at the batting stance that you had when you played Major League Baseball. Man, it was unique, right? All crunched over, and just the way that you stood in the box. And I remember a conversation with you about that batting stance. I think it was a couple of years ago when we were in the Leafs dugout. And you said that batting stance was kind of a product of trying to get to the big leagues rather than how you naturally felt like you hit. When you think about, kind of the philosophy that you give to some of these young hitters that are coming into the Maple Leafs, What kind of things, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, especially this year would be definitely more feedback on what I'm seeing. The first 2 years I kind of let the older senior guys play the way they like to play, and I feel that guys, coming up after, my generation of players, they kind of play the game more one-dimensional, trying to hit the goal, trying to hit the ball deep, and striking out more. And all the teams that I played on that won, we didn't do that. Right? We had some home run hitters, but they weren't trying to hit home runs. They, if they had to go opposite field, they did. Right? Palmer's got 3,400 hits. These guys all got 2,000, 2,500 hits of that played on that team, and they weren't all home runs. Right? So they all understood the way hitting should be, staying inside the ball, staying behind the ball, not trying to do too much. And I think there's going to be a lot more of that this year. The expectation is going to be a lot more of that. We kind of let it slide a little bit that, we're trying to hit the ball hard, but they're going to strike out more. And, that doesn't work. We've proven it doesn't work. We're battling for last place all last year. We didn't hit well with runners in scoring position. Guys didn't come up in clutch situations and do anything. There's games there where we went to extra innings and we didn't win, because the approach is off. The approach is wrong, right? So this year, the expectation is going to be much different. There is going to be more of a standard set where we want guys on base. We want guys, moving the ball around. We want more opposite field hitting with guys and runners, with guys in scoring position, because that's what all the guys in the majors say. The best RBI guys in the majors say, well, when I'm up there, there's runners on second and third, or runners on third with less than 2 out, I'm trying to hit the ball opposite field. If I happen to hit a home run, I happen to hit a home run. But my philosophy and my approach is to be shorter to the ball and use the whole field. But they're just so good that they adjust and react, and they can hit a home run, right? Our guys aren't good enough to do that, and they've proven they're not good enough to do that, right? There's no one in a team hitting 400 with 20 home runs. There's a lot of, we have very high strikeout totals, and as our hitters, we have to change that. And our pitching has to be better, right? Our pitching has to be more in attack mode, where you're using all your pitches, you're not trying to strike everybody out. Attacking a hitter doesn't mean you're trying to strike them out. It just means you're pitching smarter, you're keeping the ball down, you're changing speeds, right? You're trying to work ahead all the time. Our guys there was a sense that we should wait until the playoffs to play good. And I kept hearing this, and I was just baffled by that. I was like, that doesn't make sense. There's no logic to any of that when we almost didn't make the playoffs, right? So from day one, it has to be we're trying to win every single inning. It's just going to be different. There's going to be more aggressiveness from the coaching, I think, on the players to play better, until we find players that are willing to play the way we want to play. I think there's, we went into this winter, me, Anant, Dustin Richardson now, and Brian Sewell, that, we will keep looking for players who are going to play the way we want them to play, the right way. We don't want guys to be about themselves and their own stats and, pumping their own horns and striking out with the bases loaded all the time. That's not the expectation anymore. We want to be in every game and play different. And if they're not, we're looking for players who will. There's going to be pressure there. It's going to be different. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but there will be more pressure on the guys to play better, because the team needs to be the New York Yankees of the IBL, the team that everybody wants to play on, because we have a good culture, right? And the players want to be here. I found it almost weird that guys, we ask some guys to come and they won't come. They won't play in this, whatever it is. It could be the park. It could be some of the guys that are still here. And I'm just being totally truthful about it. It's Bizarro. It should be the most sought after team. I can't wait for Toronto. When I was a kid, I couldn't wait to play for Toronto. I didn't even think of another team. I went to Stratford because I had no other options, but Toronto was a team I wanted to be on. And that's the way it's got to be. It's the way it should be. Everything has to be different. Everything has to be more aggressive, more fun to watch. And I don't know, that's just my take on the way it's supposed to be.
I'm looking forward to seeing that dynamic between you and Dustin Richardson leading the Toronto Maple Leafs this year. We had DR on the show last week, and he said that he expects the Maple Leafs to be one of the top teams in the Intercounty Baseball League this season. And I thought it was a great point by you that you brought up about trying to win from day one, not just waiting until the playoffs to try and get hot. So how important is it for the Maple Leafs to finish first or second, or be as high a seed as possible in the regular season for you guys to be successful?
Oh, it's going to be very important. I think that, the end goal shouldn't be to come in first, because then that puts too much, it's too much out of control. You know what I mean? You can't expect to just say we're going to come first. It's got to be like day by day, like the old cliches. It's going to be day by day. You know, inning by inning, pitch by pitch. That's how you build a team that does end up in first or second. You know, if you're looking down the road too far, it's not going to happen. It's just like if you come to the plate and you're trying to hit a home run, it's not going to happen, right? So that's the philosophy of the team. The team's going to have to be, day one, first pitch, ready to try to win, ready, not coasting. We're not giving away at bats. We're not just, I'm going to get them tomorrow. No, let's get them right now. It's just got to be that way of playing for this team. It's no, nobody. We're all, from one guy to the next guy. We're all the same. We're all equal. We're playing for Toronto on the front, not the name on the back. Like I don't even want names on the jerseys anymore. Like get rid of all that. Like it isn't a one-man show. You know what I mean? It has to be everybody. So that's the only way it's going to work.
Before I let you go here, Rob, new cast of import players that we see this year on the Maple Leafs. I think of how exciting it's going to be to watch Sato pitch on opening day. And then we've got guys like Sebastian Rodriguez and Rando Moreno, and then Wilhannes Alvarado, who Maple Leafs fans will know from the last couple seasons. And I know there's one more still to be named, but how excited are you just about the import players that you have this season? Because I know you guys are taking a bit of a new approach with that.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited about it. We knew once last year ended that we needed to make some changes. We needed our imports to be a lot better. Wilhannes has been, obviously 2 years ago he was amazing. He's one of the best pitchers in the league. Last year he was a little bit inconsistent, but he'll be back. We kind of helped and tweaked him a little bit to get him going at the end of the season. He had a great finish to the season, with a couple of tweaks. So it seems so important. Like, the teams really generally do better when their imports are playing better. Right, they got a good attitude, and with Sato coming in, it's such an interesting dynamic. Having a woman playing on the team and going to open the season. Opening day, she's going to start for us because the expectation is that she's going to do well, and she's going to fit in. And I tell everybody gets an opportunity. Everybody who's been playing baseball has been given an opportunity. Right, I got an opportunity to play in the Olympics. Got an opportunity to play pro baseball. DeSantos got an opportunity to play for the Leafs, as a young player. Jordan Castolo got a chance to play for Barrie when he was a young player. All these guys have been given opportunities. So we feel that someone like Sato, who's on the world stage, is one of the best ever for women. And Keith bringing in an interesting, it's a whole different kind of enigma that it's so interesting. There's so many people following it. It's the right thing to do to give her the chance to shine on a different stage. It'll be interesting. And we're hoping for the best that it works out. But you know what? There's been number one draft picks that didn't pan out, but they got to be given an opportunity, right? So she's deserved the right to get a chance to do this, and we're going to make sure that she's gets a chance to be successful. We're going to take good care of her. She's going to be in a great environment. So we feel like all our imports and the team is going to thrive, and it's bringing so much more attention to the team. There's going to be a lot more people at the park who are going to get a chance, because of Sato, they're going to get a chance to see Justin Mara and, all these guys that we have on the team. They're going to be actually now more popular than ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, can't wait for opening day, Rob. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you at the park on May 11th.
Yeah. Thanks, Thomas. I appreciate it.